It's early Sunday morning, and I'm following my usual routine headed towards my sanctuary. I've got several projects on hold due to inclement weather coming in, and today I just want to do something relaxing and fun. So stick around. Today I'll show you how to make vintage signs almost for free. So the first thing you'll need, of course, is a collection of images that interest you. Whether they be pages from an old magazine or a postcard, or images you find by doing a Google search. I've made signs from every one of these options, and I keep separate files for auto, tobacco, and hunting related themes, which are my favorites. Anything that doesn't fall into one of these categories goes into my catch-all folder. I've used actual pages from magazines, regular 8x10 copy paper, and even cardstock, like this old ad for Mattel machine gun, which I really like. This Red Man chewing tobacco ad is on regular 8x10 copy paper, as are many of my saved images. The choices are endless, and it doesn't take long to accrue quite a collection. Your biggest challenge will be knowing when to stop. Let me know if you get there. I must admit, however, that my preference is using cardstock and in a cream color if possible. They just seem to look and feel more like true vintage. These archery related ads are a perfect example. They just seem to cross time and take you back to a simpler way of life when your only worry was getting home in time for supper. Somewhere in here is an ad for an old Red Ryder BB gun. You know, I had one of those when I was a boy. And man, what I'd give to get it back today. So from this point on, I'm just going to ad lib. As you can see me trying to get through the child-proof wrapper on this can of Mod Podge, I mistakenly tore off a section of the actual label itself and assumed that it was called Mod Podge, but I was mistaken. It's Mod Podge, and I'll say it wrong 100 times in this video. I don't really think it's pertinent to what you've got going on, so just understand. You can purchase these off Amazon for $6 or $7. I always buy the 32 ounce myself. So anyway, I'm jabbering on like a monkey in a tree. Where's my top secret folder? There it is. So I purchased a piece of galvanized metal from Lowe's for $12 and some change. And it's 2 feet by 3 feet, so you can fit quite a few signs on this one sheet of metal. For me, it was located in the same section where they sell gutters and ductwork. I don't know where it'll be for you. You can find it. My first sign is going to be a Coca-Cola ad that I took off a 24 count carton of Cokes, and I'm going to do this for my wife. But in order for this sign to be vintage, I've got to get rid of that 24 count right there on the upper left and the calorie count on the lower right. Those were never a part of a vintage sign. And I'll show you a little bit later how I remedy that. If you start in one corner on these signs and work your way around, you'd be surprised what you can fit on a 2-foot by 3-foot piece of metal. For me, since this is going to be my first sign, I started in the lower right hand corner and I lined up my right edge and my lower edge, which face my waistline, leaving me only 2 to mark off with my Sharpie, the top and the left edge, leaving me with only 2 cuts to be able to finish the sign. Now that I've got these 2 lines made, it's an easy process to make 2 simple cuts and have your first piece of metal for the sign. It doesn't hurt to lay it out and mark it or look at it one more time just to make sure you're correct. Once the piece itself is cut out, I lay it out one more time, marking any extra cuts that I've got to make sure that there's no overlap on the cardboard. And then I sand the edges so that my grandkids or my wife don't ever have to worry about a sharp edge on the sign. And I round off all 4 corners just to make sure that it's a soft edge all the way around. You'll see me bow this metal occasionally. There's my soft edge that I bought at Lowe's for $3 or $4. And I'm feeling around the edges to make sure that everything has got a soft edge on it so that nobody gets theirself hurt. Not a big deal. So you'll notice that in the upper left edge and the lower right edge, like I had told you previously, held the 24 count cans and the calorie count, which were not conducive to being a vintage sign. So I took my X-Acto knife and I scraped away back and forth until I ebbed away the actual part of the sign that showed that, and even ebbed away the corners of the sign to where there was a rough edge to where it would look like it had rusted. And that is key for making some of these vintage signs. You want it to look like that it's been there for years. And moving on, I moved my paint out of the way because I didn't have any dark brown. And I personally opted to use a dark brown stain. You can use chocolate brown spray paint to do the same effect. I just happen to have the stain on hand. If you use the dark brown spray paint, I would suggest spraying the paint into your cap and then using a brush to transfer it to your sign so you got better control of it. There's always a lot of overspray that happens whenever you're trying to use a spray paint can. The stain does the trick, and as long as you leave it ample time to dry, everything will be fine. So then I decided to start just putting the stain on the sign itself in order to get a discoloration look. My wife grew up in Stuttgart, Arkansas, and I grew up in Okeen, Oklahoma. Both of those are farm communities, and I tried to imagine in my mind an old farmer coming into the general store to get his cheeseburger and his pop for lunch, and their dirty hands pushing the screen door push, fingerprints everywhere, and over years of time, you're going to get a lot of discoloration to that old sign on the screen door. That's the look I'm going for. So I started smearing stain. If I had this to do over again, I would suggest, if you try this, to take, once you cut the side of the carton out, to go over that entire area with 800 grit sandpaper to get rid of the wax, because I noticed there was a wax covering on the carton itself, and that made it harder to get the stain to take. If you were to go over that with some light sandpaper, I think it would work better and probably give you a better look. I'm using napkins and paper towels, whatever I got on hand, to try to smear that out. And I'm finding at this moment that it's not soaking in that great. And so I end up daubing the napkin on there, as you'll see shortly. And that helps. But once again, going over that with some high-grade sandpaper to get the wax off there would alleviate a lot of these problems. You'll notice that as I'm moving along, that white stripe on the very bottom of the Coca-Cola sign, I'm starting to see some fingerprints now, which I'm getting more and more pleased with. I want this to look as old and aged as possible. And now I'm going to set the sign to the side to let it dry for a while. And where I had ebbed away the 24 count Coca-Cola right there that I'm pointing my finger to, and the calorie count at the bottom, I ebbed away enough of the cardboard that you're going to see an edge beneath the sign, and you would see shiny galvanized metal, which is not conducive to a vintage sign. So I'm going to line those up, and then I'm going to, where I'm pointing at, I'm going to take some black spray paint, and I'm going to spray around that general area so that you don't see shiny galvanized metal once the sign has adhered to the metal itself. Of course, I pick the sign up and I try to spray the edges without making any bigger mess than I have to with the overspray. And I end up going around the entire edge just a little bit. It doesn't hurt to go the added mile, because you can always sand off what you don't like. Sometime in the very short future, I'm going to take about a 5-minute break, and that's when I discover that my microphone has been off this entire time, thus leading me to do the voiceover. So sometime right here in the very short future, I will pick up again, and my microphone will be working as it should. So this just hasn't been my day. Every bit of the footage that I've covered so far on making those signs, my lavalier mic turned off, I guess. So I'll have to do a voiceover on it. No big deal. You'll get the gist of all this. But while I'm waiting on that stain and everything to dry, I thought I'd take you in here and show you some of the signs that I've already made, just so you'll know that what I'm showing you really does work. So here we are inside, just entering the man cave, And I'm going to flip the mic around the camera around, and I'll show you what I got. Okay, so directly inside the man cave here, of course all this is stickers and decals, but up here, that Pontiac sign is one of mine. The Jeep sign is one of the signs I've made. That Cummins diesel sign I made. The Lone Ranger sign I made. The Cali Girl logger sign I made. Here we have one of them. That's the Hot Rod Zombies. I thought that was really cool. I'd never seen that anywhere before. And then I made this sign, which is actually three-dimensional. It's made to look like a, like a full-size sign. I've wanted to do I want to light that up one of these days. We'll see if I can figure something out on that. I made that sign that says, "Warning, let an electrician remove your shorts." Thought that was funny because that's what I am. I'm an electrician. So this sign is one of the ones I'm most proud of because that just makes me laugh every time I look at it. I made this sign to go along with my dartboard that hangs right there. Up above my brother's firefighter helmet that he retired and gave me, way up high, I made that sign. Pretty cool. And then, let's see here. I made both of those signs. You see how that looks all aged and everything? That's really cool. I made that red man sign. I made that sign right there. I made that archery sign right there. I made the one above it. I made this beehive corn syrup sign because the little kid was wearing boxing gloves along with the old pair I've got hanging there. That looks good together. I made that Mustang sign. That looks really cool. See, that's got the stain on it that gives it the age. Turned out pretty good. Sign up there, beer, helping ugly people have sex since 1862. I thought that was kind of funny. And then over here, I made all of these signs as well. They turn out really cool. So this gives you the option. I mean, I know you can buy repops on Amazon and everything else, little tin signs, and really they're not that expensive, but they don't always have a cool theme. And I just didn't want some cookie cutter thing. I want to do what I want to do. I took some old magazine pages, Remington and Ruger, and made a couple of signs there as well. So there's a lot you can do. You can pick what you want. Pick the things that you like and turn them into a sign so that you've got something original that you just don't see every day. Anyway, I'll get back with you just as soon as I know that glue's dry, and I hope I can keep my lavalier mic working this time. You're probably going to want, actually those little foam brushes work pretty good. I forgot to pick any of those up. I'm just going to use a paintbrush. And there is no turning back now. Personally, I'm going to coat this and this with a light coat. So to start off with, This stuff smells really good. It reminds me of grade school. You're going to put a pretty healthy coat on there. Make sure you get total coverage on the piece. Set this aside. I'm going to coat the metal. I'm going to take the sign. This may be precarious because this thing's trying to curl up on me. When you're relatively certain you can see at least two edges, you put something heavy on it, and I'm using this propane bottle. That's just me. Can't be too careful. And that's pretty much it. Now we wait. This may have to sit 24 hours. And then we're going to coat the actual sign itself once we're sure it's dried nice and flat. So now it's just a waiting game. That's the first time I've ever done one with outside of a Coca-Cola carton, so I'm not sure how this will turn out. If it doesn't look worth the crap, I'll chunk it in the trash and try again. Not a big deal. So as long as I'm standing around waiting on that other one to dry, I figured I might as well do another one. Same exact sequence. This is smaller, so hopefully it'll go a little easier. Yay! I made the brilliant decision to read the directions on the back, and it says it dries in 20 to 30 minutes. We'll see. I don't remember it being that quick last time. Be back with you. Okay, so it's been a couple of hours, and I took Mod Podge at their word, and I went ahead and took all that big heavy crap off the top of this to see if everything's sealed up okay. And believe it or not, it turned out pretty cool so far. I love some of the small wrinkles that are in that. I think it adds to the vintage look. That's going to be so cool. Anyway, I got to put about 4 coats on that. Now, I'm going to show you something else real quick. Move this around. This is the one that I coated earlier. And believe it or not, that turned out good too. It's all dried. I'm going to put several coats on top of that too. And one thing that I haven't done in the past, because I wasn't smart enough to read the directions, but if you want a more glossy finish where you don't see any of the brush strokes or anything in there, you can sand it with, they said 400 grit. I'll probably use like 2000 grit sandpaper first to start off with, so I can experiment and not damage a sign. But I think I'm going to go over it with that and see, and if that's the case, I'll pull all those signs off everywhere I've got hung, and I'll do a little sand job on those as well and make them look even more high dollar. Anyway, so far so good. I'm going to put several coats on there and do a final sanding on it, and then I'll show you what it looks like right before I hang it on Mama's screen door. We'll go in here real quick before I get started putting more of the Mod Podge on, but all the signs are looking really cool. This sign here and this sign here have already got one coat on the face. And then this sign and this sign and this sign I haven't done anything with except glue them on the back side. So we're going to get started multi-coating them with Mod Podge. And this is the last you'll see of me until I get the last coat on all of them. And then I'll zip back on here long enough to go through the sanding process on that and see what that looks like. And then I'm going to turn you loose and send you on your merry way and make a sign of your own. Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple of pointers. While I'm waiting on this to dry, we're going to get started cutting out some more signs. I'm going to try to break the world's record of the most amount of signs off of one sheet of metal. So when you put this stuff on, see how that's starting to clear up already? This stuff goes on milky. So if you try this at home and you put that on there and you're like, good grief, what did I do? It's no big deal. It dries clear. You will be able to see some brush strokes. I noticed if the light hits it just right. And that's why I'm going to try that sanding technique a little later on and see if we can just make them nice and glossy. And if it does turn out to work that way, I'm pulling every sign off that I've hung, which will be a beatdown. But I want this to look good just like you want it to look good. Anyway, just remember it goes on milky, but it will dry clear. And it set on the bottle 20 to 30 minutes, but I usually give it an hour between coats. Anyway, I'm going to get the camera set up here. One thing I was going to show you too, I picked out these signs And then I'm going to try to fit this one in just because it's funny. Van Camp's. Not creepy at all. If it makes me laugh, I'm doing it. So anyway, when you're doing these signs and you print this off, most of the time it's going to have a little white edge around it. I really don't like how that looks. I like, see this one printed off, it actually looks like it's rusted around the edges, and it even has little spots on there where it looked like it might have been an actual picture of a sign, and it's got the screw holes on there. I take a straight edge and I line it up right on the edge of whatever color the sign is, and then I take my little trusty X-Acto knife, and you don't have to use this, but any kind of a sharp blade. I just like this because it's got a pretty good handle on it. You can buy replacement blades for that real cheap, and then I'll hold down on that straight edge and I'll slice that off on all four sides just to give it a more realistic effect. I just think the white edge, it just doesn't look right, and it gives me more room. So I'm going to get the camera set up here. We'll go ahead and cut out some pieces, and I'm going to start a Mod Podge, and we're just doing this in steps today. So all total, I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4 more makes 8 off one sheet of $12 metal that you can buy at Lowe's, and a can of Mod Podge, which I don't remember exactly on Amazon how much it was. Always get the 32 ounce because it'll go farther, but I think you don't want to put that somewhere where it can be subjected to freezing is all. Anyway, let's do this. So anyway, I've got the second coat on a couple of these signs. I've got the third coat on the Coca-Cola sign that's going to go in her on the screen door of her she shed. But dude, I laughed so hard. I went ahead and made these two signs right here. This one, and it's backwards because I'm in selfie mode right now. I don't have anybody to film me, so this kind of sucks. But it says Van Camp's, not creepy at all. And the look on this kid's face. This was an actual ad at one time. So, man, I don't know what the advertisement people thought back in the day. It's probably from the 50s, maybe the 60s. That's funny. And then this other one that I found just by accident. Let me see if I can get it in close enough you can see it. It's a picture of a kid, and there's a ghost standing beside him, and it says, Ouija can help you make friends. What kind of stupid crap is that? And I guess sometime back in the day, they were advertising Ouija boards as being cool. And I'm telling you, before somebody sends me some big comment saying that I shouldn't make fun of that, and that, you know, talking to spirits is real on the Ouija board and all that. Hey, I agree. It is real, but you're talking to demons, dude. You ain't talking to your deceased loved ones. And to me, that's just funny. I got a warped sense of humor. I, in no means whatsoever, condone using a Ouija board. You're an idiot if you do that. You know, watch other YouTube videos if that offends you. But anyway, to me, it's funny stuff. And so that's where we stand. All of these are coming along really good. I especially love this picture of this old roached out Jeep. I'm a Jeep guy. I've had 5 Jeeps. I don't have one right this minute, but I'm getting ready to be in the market for another one. And in the past, the 5 Jeeps that I had, I bought ones that were in different stages of disrepair, and built them up, and then somebody made me an offer I couldn't refuse, and I sold them. So I love Jeeps. I love everything mechanical. I love tractors. I love farm life. I love living in the country, and I hope you do too. Anyway, so I made the mistake of going ahead and shooting a little bit of black around the edges of all these, and it's kind of been cantankerous, been a little slow to dry. One thing I wanted to tell you is you can use a heat gun, or if you don't have a heat gun, use a hair dryer. Put a little heat on there and speed up the drying process if you don't want to wait around forever. I'm pretty impatient when it comes to that. I'm ready to rock and roll. I want a sign. And anyway, that's where I'm at right now. I'm getting ready to go ahead and stick these other 3 signs that I've got right here. I'm going to go ahead and Mod Podge those on here shortly. I'm going to put the heat gun on there one more time to try to speed up this drying process. It kind of pissed me off that I was stupid enough to do that. But it looks good around the edges. That way, if your sign doesn't exactly line up, you got a black edge and it looks good, but sometimes it's a pain in the butt. Anyway, let's do this. I'm telling you right now, it is brutally cold in northeast Oklahoma. Look at this. It was 70 degrees day before yesterday, and it's in the 20s, and it sleeted its ass off yesterday. While I was at work, it started about 9 o'clock, so my drive home, which usually takes me around a half an hour, maybe a little more, took me well over an hour because the people driving naturally slower, and hey, I get that. Not everybody's got four-wheel drive. But anyway, I just wanted to do a finish up or an outro for this sign video that I made. I got sidetracked. I got a day job just like you. I got a wife that has needs just like you. And all that stuff comes first. But I got the signs finished. I tried sanding on them a little bit. And you know what? At the end of the day, if you don't mind being able to see a couple of brush strokes when it gets in a certain light, don't worry about it. It's not worth the extra hassle, I think, to try to sand that perfectly glossy. If you choose to, probably use the 400 grit. I used 800 grit and it took freaking forever. And anyway, at the end of the day, I just brushed the stuff on, let it dry, and I'm going to call it good. I'm not as picky as some folks. I'm going to flip this camera around and show you what the end product looks like. Bear with me. Okay. So I'm headed into the loafing shed. Loafing shed, dude, I'm losing my mind. I'm headed into the man cave. And check this out. I got Mama's sign hung on the screen door. And that thing turned out really good, I think. It looks old. The video really doesn't do it justice. When you're looking at it here with the naked eye, you can see a lot more of the stain that I put on there. Anyway, it's solid, ain't going nowhere. There's my Van Camp's not creepy at all sign. That's hilarious. One of my favorites up here up high. That roached out Jeep. It turned out amazing. I was really happy with that. My Blackstone cigar sign turned out really nice. And keep in mind, this is on my cabinets that surround my man cave refrigerator, and I'm just going to keep doinking away at it till I get this thing completely full of signs. And then, of course, the outboard motor sign looked like brand new when I did it the other day, and I did some stuff to try to age it out a little bit. Man, that looks good. That looks like you just yanked it off the side of an old building or something. It's really cool. And then here's my beer bait, ice and ammo, and my delicious, refreshing Coca-Cola signs down low on the man cave door. And I really didn't think it was appropriate to put my Ouija board sign that I was joking about to anywhere but inside here in my man cave. To me, I think it's freaking hilarious. My wife, not so much. And then there's my sign I made of the guy being attacked by a grizzly. That was a really cool old magazine ad. And then, last but not least, over here on the other side of the door, I got my Western Sportsman, and they all turned out really nice. I was thoroughly pleased, and I hope that you enjoyed hanging along with me for this video. And that pretty much wraps it up. So, at the end of this, my only request to you would be, if you enjoyed hanging out with me, I made the video as short as I could, and it's just a time-consuming project. But at the end of the day, I had fun. I hope you had fun. I hope I made you laugh a little bit. And I hope that if you did enjoy it, you'll just give me a like. If you really like my stuff, I'm going to be putting out a lot more videos, and it's always going to be educational. There's always going to be something you can glean from it in your skill set if you like doing projects. I don't know. I don't know what your take is on personality types. I don't know if you like old country boys like me. But if you did have fun and you enjoyed it, hey, subscribe. I'm going to keep the videos coming. I do this because I love it. I'm not out to get anything from anybody. I don't care one way or the other. I'm just telling you guys, I do this because I love it. I want to teach the world everything that I know so that when I leave here, I'll be an empty vessel. Anyway, Shaw signing out.